Are you a fan of one of the other 31 teams not named the Chicago Blackhawks that are a little bit chafed that the organization that won 3 cups in the 2010s was seemingly gifted a generational talent in Connor Bedard? After just a couple of years of being in the basement of the league? Yeah, me too. But hey, misery loves company, and that's why I wanted to make this video to make you feel even worse about the whole situation. Because Chicago never gets Bedard if it weren't for this one extremely unlikely event. The date was April 11th, 2023, where the Blackhawks were visiting Pittsburgh for the 81st game of the season for both teams. The Blackhawks were a basement team as expected the whole year. They went into the game as the worst team in the league, giving them the best odds at getting Bedard. And let's be honest, they would have been more than happy to lose this game to improve their odds at winning the first overall pick. But a win in this game would leapfrog them above both the Jackets and Ducks. The Pens, on the other hand, were going into a do-or-die game with their playoff hopes on the line. A loss to the lowly Hawks would result in them potentially being eliminated from playoff contention, allowing the Panthers and Islanders to squeak into the playoffs instead. So a team that had every reason to lose versus a team that had every motivation to push themselves to try to win this game. Sounds like an easy game to predict, doesn't it? But hockey is weird, and sometimes the hockey gods have their own plans. Things would start off pretty shakily for the Penguins, as Chicago would draw first blood midway through the second period. But Pittsburgh would eventually respond early in the third period, as Malkin tapped in a gorgeous slap pass from Rickard Rakell. The crowd goes crazy, and things look like they should be turning in favor of the Pens as they're dominating shots by close to double. Even this Hawks fan is on board the Penguins' hype train. Just look at him go. My man bought front row seats just to cheer against his team. Absolute legend. But unfortunately for the Pens, just 5 minutes later, this would happen.
For Chicago, got to give him credit. Second of a back-to-back, got in very late last night from Chicago. In front, shot, score! It's Buddy Robinson.
I know what you're thinking. Buddy who? Robinson was a 31-year-old NHL journeyman who has bounced around 6 different organizations over the last 6 seasons and only had 3 career goals in the NHL before he scored this goal. But boy, was this goal influential, potentially influencing the landscape of the NHL for the next decade of hockey, but I'll get to that in a minute. This goal would deal a significant blow to Pittsburgh's hopes of making the playoffs, as they would unravel and give up yet another goal just 30 seconds later. The Penguins would go on to lose the game in regulation after Chicago scored another couple of empty net goals and eventually get eliminated from playoff contention 2 days later, as the Islanders and Panthers both made it into the final wildcard spots in the East. And this was a pretty big deal. The Penguins had made it to the playoffs in 17 straight seasons until Buddy Robinson made them pack their bags early. But as you might remember, this win would also make Chicago leapfrog both the Blue Jackets and the Ducks in the standings, causing them to go from the best odds at picking Bedard to the third best odds. In theory, this was disadvantageous for the Hawks, who had no reason to win this game at all. But this is the start of one of the most impactful butterfly effects in recent memory, probably since the time Patrick Stefan missed an empty net which resulted in Patrick Kane going to the Hawks. I made a whole video about that here as well. Strange how the Hawks keep coming up on top of these butterfly effect videos, eh? Anyway, the Hawks would eventually go on to win the draft lottery a couple of months later, as we all know now. But it might not have happened this way if Buddy Robinson doesn't score his goal. If he doesn't score his 4th career NHL goal on a broken play, maybe Bedard ends up as a Duck or a Blue Jacket. We'll never know. But that's not where it ends either. You know what else probably doesn't happen if Robinson doesn't score his goal?
Turn, shoot, scores! Carter for Hagee! And the Panthers have eliminated the Boston Bruins!
The historic 65-win Boston Bruins losing to the 8th seed Florida Panthers. Remember, they only got in because they beat out Pittsburgh for a playoff spot. Maybe Bergeron's career doesn't end in disappointment, and the Bruins don't suffer one of the greatest upsets in NHL playoff history. The same Panthers would go on to wreak havoc on the East, making it all the way to the Cup Finals after beating the Bruins, Leafs, and the Hurricanes. All 3 of those teams were some of the favorites to win the Cup, but got ousted by a Panther team that just barely edged their way into the playoffs, in part to Buddy Robinson's goal. And this would have even more implications across the NHL. The Penguins would end up cleaning house, as they would let go of Ron Hextall and Brian Burke after missing the playoffs. The Montreal Canadiens, who owned Florida's first-round pick that year, would go from probably having the 13th pick to picking number 31 because of Florida's success in the playoffs. That's gotta hurt for you Habs fans. Maybe Dubas doesn't get fired from the Leafs and go to Pittsburgh if they don't lose to Florida in the second round. Do the Penguins still end up trading for Norris, winning Erik Karlsson if Dubas doesn't end up as their GM? There's just so much that could have been different. This kind of stuff always makes my head hurt. How something so seemingly simple and ordinary can have such a drastic effect on the fate of all 32 teams. It's something our pal Buddy Robinson can always cherish and even tell his grandkids one day. How he changed the future of the NHL forever because of one goal that he scored. If you enjoyed this video, I hope you stick around and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.